Welcome to Points of Change Live. And today I have the pleasure of speaking to somebody who is all about making an impact and working with change makers on getting in touch with creativity and really realizing potential. He has an incredible book called Onward. We're going to be talking about that, and also his new challenge that is going to be available for you as well. His name is Scott Perry. We'll be speaking to Scott just after the titles. Scott, welcome to Points of Change. It's great to be speaking with you.
John, I'm really delighted to speak with you, and kudos on the intro. Those are some pretty impressive and creative graphics.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want a little bit of a longer intro. I'm still working on that. It's a brand new show. We'll get there. But I definitely appreciated feedback. So it's nice and cold where you are.
Yeah, we just came through a weekend of ice storms here in southwestern Virginia. We lost some power. Some of our folks are still without power, but this is we chalk this up to life in the country, and so just an opportunity to live like they did back in the old days.
So if you disappear partway through the stream, we'll put it down to that. Yeah.
I think we're back online fully. Let's hope so.
That's good to hear. What's the best way to stay warm there in these kinds of winters?
Well, we actually just moved. We moved right at the beginning of the pandemic into a house that no longer had the house that we're in now does not have a wood stove. But every place we've lived, we raised our boys on a farm that actually the whole house was heated with a wood stove. And in our former house in town, we had a wood stove in the basement that could heat the entirety of the home. And also enable us to make coffee and tea and all the things that are really essential to making it through power outages. Nowadays we're fortunately on town water, so we can still drink water and flush toilets, which is good enough.
It'll keep you going. Your background there is a hint to your experience as a musician, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So for about almost 35 years, I made my living as a professional musician. For the last 20 years, I had also added being a owner-operator of a guitar studio, very successful, thriving guitar studio here in the little town that I live in. I ended my career as a performing musician about 3 years ago and just closed down the studio this past year to pursue my other things full time.
Fantastic. And so now you've made the move, not away from music necessarily. That's always going to be a part of you, I'm sure, but now you're doing some very different things. Tell us a little bit more about what prompted that point of change for you. What was your point of change?
Excellent question. Yeah, so music is still the filter that I see the world through most often. And in 2016, I entered a program created by Seth Godin called the Alt MBA, and I went into that program thinking I was going to level up in my lesson studio enterprise, putting it online, living the dream of digital nomadship and all that. I exited that program, which is a very intense and powerful, transformative program for many people, not even wanting to be a musician or a guitar instructor anymore, but deciding, that I was going to somehow marry my lifelong interest in ancient philosophy with my lifelong interest in creative pursuits. It took several years for that to morph into the Creative on Purpose brand. But I did that by doing what we're doing here, broadcasting and interviewing people, and also blogging every week and developing an audience and sharing my ideas with them. And now it's grown into a very thriving community and coaching program where I'm helping creative difference makers fly higher in the change that only they can make in the world.
So how does that process start? How do you start working with somebody to help them make a difference in the world?
Well, a lot of the folks that I work with are already advancing in some sort of endeavor where they are trying to enhance the prospects and prosperity of an audience. For folks that have that nagging sense, that wee small voice in the back of their mind saying, hey, I think there's more to life than what I'm doing for a living. I think I could actually do better and be better. I have a very simple 3-step process that was outlined in my previous book, Endeavor, that is now a very inexpensive online workshop called the Creative Difference Maker Challenge. That's going to be running at the end of this month at a couple of different times to cover the time zones. And it's really simple. It's just a process that I've run thousands of people through as readers or workshop participants or clients, where we identify your core values and guiding principles. We identify your core talents and skills, your hard and soft skills. And then we identify where you belong with people who share your values and need your talents to enhance their lives. And at the intersection of all that is the work that you're meant to do now, the difference that only you can make. And then I work with people to develop and deliver that enterprise as effectively as possible.
Great. Can you give us some examples of the kinds of things that you've worked with people on them?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the folks that I work with are actually coaches themselves as well. Most of them are freelancers, although they don't all identify as freelancers. But as a head coach in the freelance workshop, I have adopted Seth Godin's definition, which is freelancers are people that are only making money when they are under contract or when they are actually doing the work. So I work with people in the nonprofit world. I work with entrepreneurs, that are building businesses bigger than themselves. I work with a lot of creatives, writers, and musicians. And I work also with folks that are not so much interested in building some sort of enterprise or product or service, but are actually just working on enhancing and elevating their role as a spouse, a parent, as an employer or an employee.
What sort of results then have you helped people to achieve? What sort of differences has that working with you made to people's journeys?
So one of the founding principles of my approach comes from ancient stoic philosophy, which has informed REBT and CBT and positive psychology. So it's been scientifically vetted and time tested, obviously. And what we do is we stop cycling on the narratives that are inhibiting our own progress, that are making us complicit and getting in our own way. So we, instead of focusing on the stories that we tell ourselves based on the past about how we didn't get the breaks, or we didn't win the parent lottery, or we didn't get born in the right place at the right time, at the right country, or attaching ourselves to outcomes that are beyond our control, we focus on what is within our control, which is how we decide to frame and see things, and then what we decide to do next. And that's a really important part, because there's always choices, even in this global pandemic, even with all the social unrest around racial justice or injustice, and even even with all the political and social upheaval all around us, there's still ample opportunity for anyone who is willing to seek and find the silver linings and the opportunities to create something or advance an endeavor that will help improve the prospects and prosperity of all. So it's very much about the quality of our efforts, the intention and integrity of our efforts. And what we have found, myself and all the folks that I'm working with, is that when you concentrate on the quality of your effort, the outcomes mostly take care of themselves. Purpose, passion, prosperity, and prestige are all things that are naturally occurring outcomes of doing work on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose, with and for people that you care about.
Yeah, I love all that. You said some magic words for me of Stoic philosophy. I love Stoicism, and have been very into Stoic philosophy for a long time. I even on my main show, my other show, Speaking of Influence, shouldn't call it my main show because this is just as main. I was lucky enough to invite and be accepted to have Donald Robertson on, who is an incredible speaker and expert on Stoic philosophy, and has been very involved with we talked a lot about CBT and how Stoicism has been a basis for that, and the scientific testing. So I really love that we bring those sorts of principles in, and we look at what people can do. We put things in very rational perspective, and it really can give people a nice psychological framework to be able to operate in, that has been time tested throughout a long time. And so you said you were working within Seth Godin's sort of framework. Now, I read quite a few of Seth's books over time, and I'm definitely a big fan. I mean, he is like Mr. Marketing, the big marketing guru. As far as I'm concerned, like one of the people who's definitely still worth listening to. What brought you into working directly with him through his coaching team?
Yeah. Before we move on to that, I just want to put in another plug for Donald Robertson and his work. So on my broadcast, he introduced me to Casey Pierce, who's producing his graphic novel on the life of Marcus Aurelius. So there's a great conversation on LinkedIn under my profile with Casey. I've been studying Stoic philosophy since I was in the 7th grade, and you can tell that was quite a long time ago. I was introduced to it by my Latin teacher, to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, read it over and over and over again for years and years and years before I even knew that it was a text about Stoic philosophy. And Donald's book, The Art of Happiness, was one of the texts that reminded me, like, oh yeah, this is not just a Roman emperor on a quest to become his best self by journaling, that he's actually expressing these ideas that come from Stoic philosophy. So that's a fantastic book. How to Think Like a Roman Emperor is a fantastic book. I've interviewed Donald a few times, and so Donald Robertson is somebody worth checking out Stoic philosophy as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely worth the plug and worth taking a moment for that, because my conversation with Donald, I honestly never expected him to agree to be a guest. He came on and I just kind of sat back and let him talk because it was just so wonderful to listen. I've not had that connection with Stoicism for nearly as long. I think it was maybe Tim Ferriss's stuff a few years back that sort of introduced me to it, and then some Ryan Holiday books, and from there, I think the first book I read in it was William B. Irving, and later on I came across Donald Robertson. But it was a wonderful area, and for me, I relate more to how Donald speaks about it than probably a lot of other people. But yeah, fantastic stuff.
William's book is also very, very good for those that want an introduction. But you can go right to Marcus Aurelius and learn everything you need to learn. That's the beautiful thing about Stoicism. It's very practical, pragmatic, and approachable, easy to weave into the life you're already living. You don't need an interpreter or an instructor. But let's get back to your original question, which was about my work with Seth Godin. I mentioned that I was a student or a participant in the Alt MBA. That was August of 2016. At the end of that process, I was invited to go through the Alt MBA coaching program, and it just turned out that I was not selected. But it turns out that Seth Godin, as you can imagine, has access to a lot of very, very skilled and excellent people. So I didn't get the gig the first time there was an opportunity. And then I can't tell you how I became a head coach in the Akimbo universe, but other than to say I was invited to do his first program. You mentioned his marketing, his status as a marketing expert. I was a student in the marketing seminar, which was the first Akimbo workshop and the flagship of that series of workshops. And soon thereafter, I got an invitation to become a coach, which I accepted immediately. And then when the freelancers workshop was being developed, I was asked to be a head coach because at that point there were several workshops going, and it was clear that they needed some structure to have someone just really be in charge of each workshop. So I'm currently the head coach in the freelancers workshop and the creatives workshop, which is what his latest book, The Practice, is based on.
I haven't read his latest book, but definitely it's on my wish list, I think. Let me see then. We see it on your title there, Creative on Purpose. And let me ask you, what does that mean? Is that opposed to creative by accident? What's being creative on purpose?
Yeah, so it's a brand that iterated many times along the way. When I was in the marketing seminar, the brand was initially coming out of the Alt MBA, it was called the Stoic Guitarist because I didn't know what else to call it. I just knew I was a guitarist at that time and I wanted to weave in philosophy. It became the Stoic Creative in the marketing seminar, where I published a book by that title. And Seth actually had a conversation with me online saying, Stoicism is really not quite widely understood, and often misunderstood. And, creativity and Stoicism don't seem to be the kind of things that are going to go well together. And of course, arrogant me was like, oh no, this is going to be great. I've got it all figured out. Turns out the book sold modestly, and people that purchase it love it, and it's still selling today. But it was clear that Seth was right. And later on, when I landed on the brand Creative on Purpose, Seth actually on my broadcast gave me a big thumbs up and said, fantastic, love the brand. This is it. So as I developed the brand, it's really just based on these two ideas. The first is that, from Stoicism, that the Stoics believe that what makes humans is our social nature and our capacity for reason. I've woven in this idea that humans have a basic creative impulse. It's been, there's plenty of anthropological evidence that this is true. There's a great book by Antoine Fuentes, The Creative Spark, that investigates that. And so creativity is a basic human impulse. It's something we employ from childhood. We create talkers from non-talkers and walkers from non-walkers. And, eventually we learn to read and write and do all these other things. We learn to make sandwiches. We learn to make conversations. We learn to write stories. And then purpose is just this idea that purpose isn't a destination that lies out there for you to find. It's something that you cultivate and nurture by doing things with intention. And if you do things with intention and integrity, and you employ your creative capacity, you are going to make change happen. And that's, to me, all creativity is. It's just the act of making change happen. If you're going to make worthwhile change happen, you're going to have to do it on purpose. And if you're going to do it on purpose, then why not do it in alignment with who you really are, and in a way that enhances the prospects and prosperity of the people that you're making change with and for.
So in a way, it's an inspired form of creativity. Is that right?
Yeah, I think of it as, many people do not identify or embrace their creative impulse, and that's sad, but that's a symptom of institutional education, work, etc. That it's not true that people are not creative. Everyone has that capacity, and everyone employs it every single day. We're doing it right now. But what if you can embrace and start to leverage your creative instinct, you can then also start to level up to artistry in some of those domains. So, I love cooking, but I will always just be an amateur creative cook. But I'm deeply invested in being a professional coach and professional community builder. I am leveling up to artistry in that craft by doing my work out loud, in public, and to make a living. And so I am putting myself fully on the hook. I'm fully invested in the development of craft and the change that I seek to make. And so that's a distinction that we make at Creative on Purpose is, yes, be creative everywhere and in everything you do, and then be intentional about what you're going to level up into artistry is, because that's how you're going to make significant and meaningful change happen.
So what if there's someone watching or listening thinking, I'm not really very creative?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
If there's someone watching or listening who thinks that they're not very creative, not very creative, not really in access with that. I'm much more of a technical person. I like to have it, not really in that side of things.
One of the catchphrases or taglines that I wrote in Onward is choose your story, choose your future. Now, if you want to attach yourself to that story, if you want to cycle on that story and you want to impede your ability to make, to improve yourself and improve your life and improve in your work, that's fine. That's your choice. Good news, bad news, everything is outside of your control, except good news, your ability to frame things and decide what you do next. And the framing of things is about storytelling. Narrative is how we've always made sense of ourselves, of our situation, of each other. And you can stay attached to a story that impedes your ability to level up in creative pursuit, or you can decide to let go of that story and start telling yourself a new story that you are a creative and that you are a creative in process. You have to do things that you can't do, and that means you will do them badly and you will fail before you start to do them modestly and do them well. If you waited until you could ride a bike perfectly, you would never have ridden a bike. But by getting on the bike and trying and failing and falling and getting on again and paying attention to what was happening and iterating your approach, you eventually become a person that just hops on a bike and rides and doesn't even think about it. That's creativity in action.
It's interesting. I know I've been doing coaching for years myself, and one of the things that always just appears to be true, like one of the main reasons why people stop themselves from progressing is that they get in their own way. And so I use that very intentionally. People do stop themselves. Most of the obstacles are self-made or are in our minds or in our way of thinking, or as you very well put it, the stories, the narratives that we run inside our own mind. Breaking out of those is kind of easy to say, but it's not always easy for people to do. How do you support yourself then in like, okay, I want to have a different story, I want a different narrative. How am I going to make that a reality for myself? Okay, I'm telling myself something different, but what else? What can support me on that journey?
Yeah, well, you're saying something really, really important, so I just want to highlight it. We are almost always the creators, or at least complicit in the obstacles that we put in front of ourselves. And as a coach, I'm sure, as coaches are always people that are, and I assert that everyone is actually a coach. Just some of us do it informally and some of us do it formally. But, if you are a person that is invested in helping people you care about get from where they are to where they want to be, and seeing the things that they don't see and helping them navigate their way around or through them, that's coaching. And I can be a bloody genius at helping John see the things that he doesn't see. I can help him see and turn on light switches and see and walk through thresholds that he can't see because he's stuck in a narrative that inhibits his own progress. At the same time, I am lousy at doing that same thing for myself. So I need John to sit with me, talk with me, show me the things that I don't see, and then keep me on the hook for navigating my way around or through them. So, I have a blog post that's titled, "You Don't Need a Coach," because if you believe you don't need a coach, you don't need a coach. Because the truth is, if you're tuning into this broadcast, you're fine. Everything is fine just the way it is. And in fact, you probably, would have been happier if things had just continued on the way they were before 2020 came around. At the same time that you are sufficient, we have this aspirational nature. We are strivers. And, the dirty little secret is this is one of the things that human beings can do. We can hold two opposing ideas in our head at the same time, and our heads won't explode. Everything's fine just the way it is. And yet I seek to be and do more. And you can have both of those things happening, and doing that kind of engaging in that kind of journey with someone else, with a trusted advisor, a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a friend. That's the way that progress is actually made. Because if you try to treat your journey and personal growth and elevating your endeavor as a do-it-yourself project, you're not gonna make significant progress. And just think about, do you cut your own lawn? Sure. Do you take out your own appendix? Probably not. Seek out people that are trained to and who are invested in helping you get from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It should never be underestimated, the value of coaching. And I think even when I first got into coaching, I probably underestimated how important it was. And do I think people can get where they want to be without it? Yeah, I think it's possible. Do I think people get there faster and more supported and feeling better about it? Yeah, with a coach, yeah. So with help, we can achieve more. We can go further. We can go faster. One of the things I find, some of the people I work with, some of my clients, very successful already in their fields. Even speakers who I work with on their speaking and speech writing, still there are things that you don't always see about what you're doing or on your own journey, or the limitations that you place upon yourself based on your own experiences, results, beliefs, and often things from childhood that still stay with us and end up holding us back. And so having someone like you on the outside who can see that and see your greater potential and hold you to it, hold your feet to the fire and say, come on, we can do this. Let's make the plan. Let's help you get there. Let's give you the encouragement, the accountability, everything you need to actually achieve this. It's going to make big changes. It's going to make big result. I want to ask you then, your new book, Onward, you've mentioned it. Tell us the whole purpose of the book. What is the intention of that book?
Sure. Just want to quickly highlight what you said, because what you just said was really, really important. And the key motivator for making change happen is investment. Yes, you can make change happen if you invest your valuable time and attention that you can never get back. But when you invest in yourself by investing in coaching or some sort of group coaching program or some sort of program, period, we just know from psychology, that's the way that you go all into the change that you seek to make. Onward is Onward. I began writing Onward right before the pandemic hit. As the pandemic hit, I realized that Onward had to become a different kind of book, a book about embracing uncertainty, navigating adversity, and flying higher in the difference that only you can make. And so what I did was I went back to my operating system, Stoic philosophy, and I pulled out some quotes from Marcus Aurelius, where he is sharing the 3 disciplines of Stoicism that were first outlined by Epictetus. And the disciplines, different scholars have different names for them, but the ones that make sense to me are the discipline of perception, the discipline of action, and the discipline of will. And where in the past I would wave my Stoic flag at the beginning of a book, I saved the punchline for the very end, and I just threw the book is less than 100 pages long, so it's a handbook, very much like Epictetus's discourses or Marcus's journal. It's 3 sections that outline this process by which you can see things as they really are, objectively, without value judgment, without strong emotional attachments. You can then see the choices and make a decision as to which one you're going to act upon. You can then, second step, take a small, bold step into your potential impossibility and continue to pay attention to what's happening and continue to use your powers of perception to see how things are unfolding and what adjustments, if any, need to be made. And that this is all done in a way that aligns who you are with what you're good at and where you belong. And so the discipline of will is just this idea of paying attention to the process, paying attention to the quality and integrity of your efforts, because that's all that's really yours anyway. The outcomes are beyond your control. And you can find joy, you can find a sense of flourishing and fulfillment in the work itself, in the effort itself. And if you do that, it's more likely that the things that you might think you want, like prosperity or status or prestige, are things that will come. But whether or not they come, you're still on the journey. You're still deeply engaged with your life, and you're experiencing a greater sense of flourishing and fulfillment in it. So that's the book is just really laying out this very simple 3-step process by asking 3 questions. What's now? What's the situation now? What's next? What am I going to choose and do? And then what's it all for? And what it's all for is the quality of your effort, development of your character, and doing good work, that we elevate ourselves most through work that serves others.
Okay. You recap that for us? What next?
Oh, so what's now? Like what's really
now?
going on?
Okay.
What's next? What's the best choice I can make, knowing that I can't know exactly how it's going to turn out? What's the next smallest step into possibility and potential? And then after you take that, doing that with what's it for is it's for cultivating your character and enhancing the experience of others. So do that work on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose.
Okay. So what now? What next? What for? Got it. How often should we ask ourselves those three questions?
I ask them all day long. I actually really do. So one of the things that I did about 10 years ago was, I was very, very overweight, and I realized, like, this is not going to get any easier, as I age. And I started by just walking up to the top of the driveway and back, and eventually turned that into a 3-mile run, or 3-mile walk, and then a 5-mile run. And, in a very short period of time, I lost 75 pounds by just starting with a small step. And so I just, so one of the things I would do is I would tape the question, what's it for, on the peanut butter jar, because I had a really nasty peanut butter habit, and so when I would see that question on the peanut butter jar, I'd be like, well, it's because I'm weak and I want a snack.
I've heard of worse addictions, but
yeah, exactly. So it would be a way of reminding myself, like, okay, you actually don't want that, because it's not serving your higher purpose, which is you've got to get yourself in shape. You want to be around for your sons and for your wife and future grandkids and for your clients and whatnot. So, as something as mundane as that those three questions can be a powerful lever for ratcheting progress towards what you really want, as opposed to the knee-jerk reactive responses that we have unconsciously happening to ourselves all day long.
Are there any other things that you do on a daily basis to keep yourself on track?
Absolutely. So one of the things that, again, is a tenet of Stoic philosophy, but also proven by psychology, is the easiest way to lift your mood and to change your posture and mindset is gratitude. So I begin every day with a group of people in the Akimbo alumni community. We have a daily gratitude practice where the first thing we do is we wake up and we list 3 simple gratitudes. It becomes a superpower when you can do things like say that you're grateful for a power outage, right? It sounds like something that's a negative. It sounds like
I was just picking up my little gratitude journal here, trying to put it on the camera. Every day, my three gratitudes, amongst other things. But so
gratitude, it just instantly lifts your mood. In the same way that music making is also one of those things that is scientifically proven to really enhance our mood, connection, sense of being, well-being, and all that. So that's a daily practice. A daily writing practice is also just something that I've done because it's how I clarify my thoughts, and I do my writing out loud and in public. I want to hear from people, even internet trolls, because it helps me build the resilience that I need to continue to do to improve what I do, but also helps me refine who the right people are for my work and who the wrong people are for my work. And it gives me also if you are engaged in a meaningful endeavor, if you are applying your creativity and your integrity and your intention and your skills to meaningful work, there will inevitably be challenges, misfortune, obstacles, and failures. And so creative resilience is required. And you can only build that by embracing that things might not work out the way that you want them to, that you might not be understood in the way that you intend, or that you might just be ignored, which is very easy to happen, in the internet age. So
Yeah.
all these kind of simple daily practices just help me, make it through the lean times and the challenging times, because I'm always pushing to the edges of my understanding and ability, because that's how I'm going to get better at what I do.
So would you say it's primarily mental resilience that gets you through the tough times, or are there any other things that keep you going? Is there a really big why that pulls you through those times as well?
It's a great question. Routines and relationships. So I've talked about some of the routines, but relationships are also really, really important. You do have much more control over who you choose to spend your valuable time and attention with and on. I'm not suggesting that you ditch all your loser friends because they're dragging down your average. And some of us, can tell ourselves stories about how, family members or relations are not fueling our desire and our journey into our potential. But largely on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute basis, we get to choose where we spend our time and who we listen to and who we don't listen to. So I am very, very judicious about where I donate my valuable time and attention. I'm very, very clear about who I'm bringing into my community and who I'm taking on as clients. And at the same time, able to generously show people where there might be a better fit, or where there might be room if there's no room, in our community at the time. So I just think being really vigilant about who you spend time with and who you listen to, in addition to paying attention to what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, like, maintaining the quality of the thoughts that are entering our own minds and the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves and about our situation. Those two things really help me stay on track day to day and stay focused.
I personally find Stoic philosophy helps me in so many ways. So I can very, very much relate to you there. But so does music. So we have quite a few things in common, I think, Scott. So you mentioned earlier on about a challenge, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell us more about that.
Yes, well, thank you. I just announced this earlier, excuse me, this morning. I've been developing that Venn diagram of, who you are, what you're good at, and where you belong ever since my first book, The Stoic Creative. And as I've engaged with, hundreds of readers and clients and workshop participants, it's become more and more refined. And I feel like I am told that it is a very powerful way for anyone at any stage of life to get some clarity as to the work that they're meant to do now. Not the work you were born for, because you were not born for any single purpose or any single endeavor. But, if you are aware of your core values and guiding principles, if you take an inventory of your talents and skills, both hard skills and soft skills, and are mindful about surrounding yourself with people who share your values and need your talents and skills to enhance their lives, you will find meaningful work to start doing. And that process is going to be unpacked in a 2-hour workshop 2 different times later in February. If you go to creativeonpurpose.com/challenge, you can get all the details. There's lots of bonuses and a month of support. But my goal in the challenge is I know that love equals work and work equals love. We human beings are born to work, to put energy into worthwhile endeavors. And if we're going to do that, why not engage in work that fuels and fulfills us? It doesn't mean that it has to become your full-time job, because there's work you have to do to make a living, to take care of your responsibilities. That's fine. Hopefully you get some pleasure, or at least don't experience any displeasure in that job. But you still have plenty of time to do the work you get to do, some sort of meaningful endeavor, whether it's a side hustle, an encore career, a passion project, just a hobby. But you can work on that on the side, and working on that and doing that with and for others will help you experience a greater sense of fulfillment and flourishing in your life, regardless of whether it ever makes you a penny. So the challenge is going to help people dial in the difference that only they can make. And I would love for viewers to check it out. And if it feels like a good fit, come join us.
Well, links will be in the show notes once after the live. We'll make sure all of that gets updated before it goes out as properly as part of the show. But that sounds fantastic, and it's something I'm interested in checking out myself. So you mentioned your website, and just want to give that another plug so people can get in contact with you if they want to know more about your challenge, more about your books, more about you and what you've been talking about today, and any other places where people can come and connect with you.
Yeah, so creativeonpurpose.com is where I live. It used to be that you could Google Scott Perry and I was the #1 hit, but then this representative from Pennsylvania came along named Scott Perry. Actually, I competed pretty well with him, but then there's a professional basketball coach named Scott Perry now. It turns out that politicians and washed up musicians can't compete with politicians. So go to creativeonpurpose.com, or if you put creativeonpurpose.com and Scott Perry, you'll find me on social media. You'll find the website, the blog, the broadcast, and all the other goodies.
Great. Again, we'll have links in the show notes for anyone who wants to come and find out more, find out about your challenge, your books. It all sounds like good stuff to me. It's been a very enjoyable conversation. Is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't?
No, this was a great interview, and you're doing great work. And I love that I'm on your newer show because I am an early adopter. I believe in joining innovative projects and trying things that might not work. I think you are making a significant difference in the world yourself, John, and I am applauding and supporting you from the sidelines while you're in the arena thrashing it out. It's been a delightful conversation. You ask great questions, and this is a great way to start my Monday and start my week. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate you giving up your time to come and share some great insights and some knowledge bombs and wisdom and stoic philosophy, which I just love, with us all as well. So I think it's helping me get the show off to a great start. Scott, thank you so much. And I will look forward to speaking with you again in the future and seeing more great things from you as well. And stay warm, right?
Yeah, please. It's been a privilege. Thank you, John.
Thank you.